This is why you don't get day jobs, ladies and gentlemen. I was out working, and while I was working, New England Patriots cut Cam Newton. So we missed out on a bunch of news. I don't get to break it to you first. It's probably going to have 15 views because it's so late, but I still want to talk about this. I'm just realizing there's a large echo in here, but hopefully it doesn't come through too much on the video. The Patriots are going to release Cam Newton per the Boston Globe's Jim McBride, which obviously means Mac Jones is going to be the starting quarterback. And they took Jones, I think it was the 15th overall in this year's draft. Let me double check. 15th overall. And Jones, according to PFF, has been extremely impressive this rookie season. He's got a 92.2 grade through the preseason so far, which again was only 3 games this year instead of 4. That includes a 93.4 offensive grade against Philadelphia. Both the yards grades he had were above 78. So he's had a very good preseason. We've seen preseason warriors fall apart in the past, but Mac Jones is a guy who is coming off one of the best college football seasons in recent history by a quarterback. Obviously not better than Joe Burrow's. Obviously he's not that caliber, but he was up there certainly in terms of what he's able to produce in a loaded Alabama offense. He's come in and still had a lot of success so far earlier in his NFL career, both in practice and in preseason. In his first preseason game against Washington, he was 13 for 19 for 87 yards. And that's not super impressive. I know people were lauding him for playing well in that game. I wasn't totally blown away by his performance that night. But then he comes out against the Philadelphia Eagles, goes 13 for 19 for 146 yards. He looks really good that night. And then against the Giants, might be what the straw that broke the camel's back, 10 for 14, 156 yards, and a touchdown. So he's looked amazing so far early on in the preseason at least. And there's been some reports coming out of practices that he's done really well. If you actually look at one of the reports I had for Clutch Points recently, I was talking about how well Jones performed in any practice against the New York Giants. It was obviously a double practice where they're playing with New York. And against New York's starting defense, he completed, I think, 18 passes in a row. So he's been doing phenomenal against starting caliber players, both in practice and in the preseason. Jones is a guy they obviously had a lot of faith in, taking 15th overall, even though clearly the rest of the NFL was steering clear of him, wondering if he got boosted too much by playing in Nick Saban's loaded offense with so many top recruits, so many other first-round picks, both on the offensive line, at running back, Najee Harris, at wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. New England didn't care. They took Mac Jones, and somehow, after all of this, after having Tom Brady for 20 years or so, they landed Mac Jones, and Mac Jones has been the most impressive rookie quarterback so far in the preseason. I was a little surprised to cut Cam Newton anyways. Cam Newton's deal was very incentive-laden. So even if he didn't hit, even if they kept him around the roster, he wasn't going to be hitting all the incentives. So it wasn't going to be costing them a lot of money. Who the guys have? They have Brian Hoyer, I know, is still on the roster. I'm surprised. Why would you cut Cam Newton when you can cut Brian Hoyer instead? But I don't know. Maybe there is some financial savings there for getting rid of Newton. I didn't necessarily look at that. I didn't have time to look at that. I came home, sat down, and started this right away. But Brian Hoyer's still on the roster. Mac Jones is going to be on the roster. I think Jarrett Stidham is still there, perhaps. I probably should have done more research before jumping into this video. But you still have some decent quarterbacks on the roster. Guys who are not starting caliber, I would say. Yeah, Stidham's still around. So it's going to be Mac Jones, Brian Hoyer, and Jarrett Stidham are going to be your quarterbacks going into 2021. I would much rather have had Cam Newton instead of Brian Hoyer, but moving on from Cam Newton means you can have a different kind of offense. The offense this past year was so predicated on running the ball. They didn't have many passing options. They didn't have many passing attempts compared to the rest of the NFL. With Cam Newton no longer there, they can kind of go back to the Tom Brady style offense because there's no quarterback that needs to run so much. None of these guys, Stidham, Hoyer, or Jones, are going to be running a heck of a lot. And of course, you have your 2 tight end sets now with the guys you signed this offseason, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, bringing those guys back in. You're starting to look a little bit more like your mid-2010s, early 2010s New England Patriots. So we'll see how Mac Jones performs, but the Patriots have been clearly blown away by his performance so far in the preseason and in practices, so much that Bill Belichick was okay to move on from Cam Newton, a guy who he's talking about as having a better control of the offense this year than he did this past season. Obviously, last year was his first year in New England, and Bill said he grew a lot in the offseason in terms of understanding the offense. I'm going to wonder a little bit if this whole COVID-19 situation with Newton, where he actually got tested away from the facility, but then had to miss, 5 days because he was tested away from the facility and kind of broke some kind of procedure. I'm wondering if that played into this at all. I heard the Patriots were a little bit frustrated with him doing that, but I don't think that would be the reason why you cut him, obviously. I don't know. I hope we learn more. I hope there's more to this story than just this. Because I don't know. I just want NFL football. I want the regular season to come. If Mac Jones comes in and balls out, it'll just say, they made the right decision. But if Mac Jones comes in and struggles right away, and you have Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer as your backup, we're all going to be questioning the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. So it'll be very interesting. This could go basically one of two ways. Let's see how this plays out. But thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you all later.